Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Pull Up Trey. I am Trey. This is what I consider the GOAT, the greatest
Oh,
writer
Jesus.
currently in the market, Samson Folk. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to see you pulled up, Trey, the namesake of the podcast. What happens on this podcast? We talk about the Raptors, the NBA, typically a little bit of baseball. What we get to do to start off this episode, though, is talk like the intersection of MMA, culture, sports, all that kind of stuff. Just since everybody's having fun with the Draymond conversation, we kind of wanted to review the dirtiest plays we could think of in the Raptors history. And I want to start off with you, not the dirtiest plays, but I do want to know what you think about the Draymond situation. It's reached a
Um,
fever pitch. People care.
yeah, no, I think the league got it right. I'm assuming the suspension happened because like Sabonis actually was hurt, but I thought it should have been a suspension, like regardless. Like the common logic that you're seeing like from the fans is like, what was he supposed to do? Like he was reacting to another person's action, but the but just because someone does something to you, you can't burn their car down.
I saw this dude in North York.
Yeah,
There was a kid who was they're boxing, right? Like
yeah,
the one kid was, well, I shouldn't say kid, young adult. They're
yeah,
probably between like 18, 25. They're hooping. The
yeah.
one guy squares up, and the person he's squaring up with is smaller, but he runs off. And the other guy kind of chases him down because he wants to fight. The other guy goes to the bag, doesn't grab the blicky, he grabs the machete. He had a machete on him. He swung, he hit. He
Oh,
hit the guy in the head. He didn't chop it, but you could hear like the thud. I
yeah,
guess it's probably a little harsh for people on a basketball podcast. But anyway, he swung a machete at him. And everybody's like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You know,
yeah.
you want to square up with somebody, that can always happen. It's like, really? Are these the laws? These are like the not the actual judicial laws, but
Yeah.
are these the laws we abide by as humans? Is like, don't do anything to anyone because they might hit you with a machete. Like, what is this common knowledge, common wisdom? And
No.
I see that's how people justify it, is like, if you do a thing, anything can happen afterwards. And it's like, why would that be the logic? How
Yeah.
is that ever the logic?
I don't know. Even in watching the video, like you could debate even whether like Sabonis was like actively trying to grab his ankle.
I think, okay, I'll say that. I think
Okay.
Sabonis grabbed his ankle.
Okay.
I still don't think that you like we've seen ankle grabbers.
Yeah.
Pascal, for example, he in the 2019 Eastern Conference semifinals, he threw that leg back and Joel Embiid tripped on it, right?
Yeah.
It's functionally similar to what Sabonis did then. But and also Chris Middleton grabbed Dylan Brooks' leg. We've seen Draymond Green grab legs, ankles in the past. We've seen guys, they get frustrated, they grab legs. We haven't ever seen a guy be like, it's clobbering time, you know, like, and stomp a dude out. That to me is crazy.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I'm glad it wasn't more than one game. But I would have been pretty surprised if he didn't get suspended. I'm gonna be honest.
No, it was crazy. I do hate that it's taking away from the series. 'Cause I think like the Kings have been like, especially De'Aaron Fox, he's probably been like the breakout star of this playoffs. And he's like, for me, like watching these playoffs, the big takeaway is like guard play, guard play, guard play. Whether that's the skill set itself and having like someone who can pull up from mid range, hit pull up threes, penetrate and dish to others, because like you're facing every team you're playing has somewhat of a good to elite defense aside for like a couple teams. It looks like that's where the league is going, and the more of those players that you have, especially from a tertiary standpoint, like you're impossible to guard. The Warriors, they look old for the first time. Really, like they can't stay in front of the ball because everybody on the Kings can pass, shoot, drive, which is crazy.
Even their young guys, they
Yeah,
don't necessarily look old. But Poole, for example, is not the guy you want. Who's not particularly sticky at the point of attack. Like
yeah,
Malik Monk is fantastic. Goose, if I can find the tweet, I'll throw it up on screen. But he had that tweet where he was like, De'Aaron Fox's game seems like it's made for the playoffs.
yeah,
And that's true. You can go back to when people were complaining about the Fox versus Halliburton thing when they were on the same team and Fox's decision making. I know guys who work in the NBA now who were very much like Halliburton over Fox. And like it's very because Halliburton made better decisions and had like a sexier shot chart and all this kind of stuff. But Fox has exactly like there's that charge conversation that's going on. Do you ban the charge? Do you I don't find it to be compelling, but
yeah,
regardless, Fox doesn't run into that. Why? Because he's such an immaculate operator in the mid range. He can get there whenever he wants. He can stop and pop if they throw that wall up, but he can also blow by if the rotations don't come in time. He is a guy who is made in a lab to kind of just undo these Warriors at the point of attack and at the back end. Because Draymond is so good at, well, he won't be there for game 3, but he's so good at doing that one thing, right? Is like rotating to the ball if they drive, getting a hand on the sweep through, contesting at the top, being able to stay with the guy throughout. But it's like Draymond can come meet De'Aaron at 10 feet, and De'Aaron's just going to hit a push shot. If he
yep.
meets him at 14, he's going to hit a mid-range jumper. If he doesn't get there, it's a layup. He's the perfect counter to the lack of point of attack defense from the Warriors, and then the timely help side defense from the Warriors too. He's great.
No,
It's like I said though, if they beat the Warriors, those Bay Area tech journalists they're gonna dig up the crypto scam that he pulled, and we're gonna hear about it again. Every 2 months, I look it up to see if he's given the money back.
No.
He's just, hey, we're not doing that anymore. The money, poof, it's a wazi, it's a woozy. Where'd it go? All that kind of stuff. But anyway, Raptors dirty moments. Do you have any that come to mind?
The first that comes to mind is Kyle Lowry to Paul George, where and the funniest part is like how much people like were defending the issue. But for anyone who doesn't know, there's a loose ball. Both Paul George and Kyle Lowry are going for the ball. Kyle hooks Paul George's arm and then does a WWE like dolphin dive onto his arm, looking like he's trying to break his arm, and then casually gets up. Paul George is furious, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And like I remember that day, like how people like vigorously were defending Kyle and saying it wasn't dirty. Tangles happen. They're both going for the ball. They're fighting hard. It's very similar to the Draymond issue. Where like, oh, like this is a part of the game. This is what was he supposed to do? He's trying to get the ball. It was hilarious.
I think if you ask Kyle, you're not going to get the opportunity to now, and most of the answers you'll probably get is like, I was trying to win. I did all the things I could to win as an undersized guard in the NBA. And it's true, he did. And I know I'm not talking Kyle Lowry with you. I know better than that. But he's gonna make the Hall of Fame. He has a legacy. But if you give him the truth serum and ask him like, Kyle, you were on some bullshit sometimes. Like, do you agree? He'd be like, oh yeah, I was that dude. He's definitely been like, he just his presence, the Mountain Valley West, conference, like the grinder guard who plays all 4 years. He's like Aaron Kraft with skill and athleticism and all this kind of stuff. And he took it to the NBA, man. Do you have any others? Are they all Kyle Lowry?
All of them are Kyle. I don't know if the bubble play is dirty. Yeah. Well, to Aaron Gordon. That's like borderline. That's like the next one that comes to mind. But I just like remember like the quote where he told him to meet him at his air room. Like that day for sure, I was like, this guy's leading us to another title.
That I felt like was kind of like a boys will be boys thing. Yeah. The Paul George one though, I was like, Kyle, what are you doing, dog? That one blew my mind.
Oh, because like in the replay, like he fully has his arm like this. He's outside, and then he does, which is crazy.
It's like there's that Family Guy meme where like they fall and their arm goes behind their back and like the leg is broken. It's like that's the classic. You've been hurt bad, and it feels like if Kyle got exactly like the worst outcome in that situation, that's exactly the position that Paul George would have been in.
Oh, it was nuts. What comes to mind for you?
I was trying to think of like what's happened recently. Unfortunately, these ones are not so bad, but they definitely are on the side of like, okay, that's happened a couple of times. Like Pascal, the one I do like it's always interesting when you think about Pascal, like when he got Al Horford in the nuts, is that Pascal wasn't going to get him in the nuts, right?
Yeah,
But Horford fouled him. It removed Pascal's path, like his arm path, from getting back to the ball because he was sweeping through.
yeah,
And then Pascal, I think, realized like, well, my hand is going in between his legs here. And
yeah,
I wonder if he was like, I'm going for it. I'm gathering back to the basketball, not the balls.
yeah,
I'm gathering back to the basketball and I'm going to try and get my hands on it. Or if it was all accidental, I feel like he got fouled. And if he didn't get fouled, that wouldn't have happened. But I also feel like he applied some pressure. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
If you listen to Philly fans, you would say, well, what Pascal did in the playoffs was dirty. He cracked Joel in the face.
Oh, that one, no. That one I
Yeah,
disagree like
I
wholeheartedly.
agree.
Like that is an, that is, I think Pascal was correctly called for an offensive foul.
Yeah,
Because you extend the elbows and like you're clearing space. A lot of players do it. Very rarely does it end up with the broken occipital bone or whatever it was. But I don't think he meant to do that. I think he was like clearing space, and
yeah,
I would think that was um, a hazardous play, like a careless type of
yeah,
like play, which Joel Embiid has been on the other side of a few of those, like carelessly kind of throwing his body around, creating even, well, I guess even earlier in the series with Scottie's um, sprained ankle. But either way, Pascal, he ended up elbowing in the face. I think that was just like careless rather than dirty.
yeah,
And then careless and dirty was Pascal's when he hooked Joel way back in 2019. But there was no bad outcomes for that one. Like that
yeah,
one, Joel had like started the process of going to run. He wasn't like Scooby Dooing where he's like the legs are going, I'm ready to go or anything like that.
yeah,
But what did happen was Joel just kind of like cleared the kinetic energy, spaced himself out, and went to the floor. And then the foul was called, and that was it. But which is what Dylan Brooks did when Chris Middleton grabbed his ankle,
yeah.
and Chris Middleton got a flagrant one for that. I think, if I remember
Yes, correct.
correctly. Either way, um, the Draymond stuff is pretty funny, but that series, it kicks ass. It's super good. If you want to improve your relationship to cars and the people that put you in them, the sponsor of this podcast, Queensway Automotive Group, QAG, they have a bunch of locations all over the GTA. They can move cars around to suit where you need to pick them up. They can get you into a lease. They can get you out of a lease. If you need help fixing your car, they can help you. If you need help figuring out like quotes, if you're shopping around looking for good deals on cars, they can help you with that. And as far as just like purchasing pre-owned, new, used, all this kind of stuff, they have you set up. And they are the sponsor of this podcast. We do appreciate them for doing so. If you want to help out the podcast, if you want to help out QAG, and you want to be looked after for all your car needs, there's a link in the bio. You can click that. It'll sort you out. And once again, it does help the podcast and the sponsor. Thank you, QAG. Okay, so Scottie Barnes, the guy we brought up who had his ankle sprained in the playoffs last season, the guy who won't be in the playoffs this season, Scottie Barnes. Now, you're a Jamaican man. You know that Scottie has Jamaican history, he has Jamaican lineage. This was something that you found out, was it the night of the draft? And you're like, let's go, he's going to be a star.
I'm proud enough to admit that I was on the wrong side of history of who I wanted who I wanted the Raptors to pick. I was I was at the Raptors Republic draft party. We know Big Jalen sucks, and I'm like looking at Lake Ontario in depression, and then it might have been Grange actually. Like, oh, Scottie's looking forward to being in Toronto because he has Jamaican heritage, and immediately I'm like, all right, this kid's a star.
So that's stardom. Let's check in on it. Where are you already Scottie's sophomore season? Wherein I think the conversation for the first couple months, October, the end of October, November, December was uh, the Ni Hao stuff. Ben Simmons the second. He's not in the gym. He's not working. He's, everybody has him figured out. Adam, my colleague, my guy is asking other star players, What do you make of Scottie's struggles
Yeah,
this season? All the other star players are saying this is what happens. It's going to be fine, and it was. But
yeah,
your thoughts on the season?
yeah. The like first 2 months, like there was the big overlap. Big gap was like, oh, this is Michael Carter Williams 2.0, fake rookie of the year season, which I never thought. For me, I feel the exact same how I felt going into the season. I would say I would probably lower on consensus of like pathway to stardom than probably most Raptors fans were like heading into the rookie year, just simply because like the ways that he wins and scores aren't in the traditional sense. I mean, we're going to probably have to, if he's going to be that primary player, a team with plus like drive, kick, shoot ability to go around him, which is very hard to do. You're kind of seeing that with the Kings with Sabonis, but there's the Kings are a one of one team kind of right now in terms of the level of creation that they have around that like central post player. But with Scottie heading into the year, like what I was looking to see was more so improved defense, and that like heading into the year, heading into the second half of his rookie season, you saw those improvements and that he's going to be a plus defender. But it looked like the Raptors made a decision that he's going to be our main point of attack defender, and that was a terrible idea. He significantly struggled at that spot, and they kind of pulled away from that throughout the season. And you saw like positive returns. He's a really good low man. He has really good instinct and still can blow up a lot of actions, which I think is his future. And in terms of improvements, like he's improved a lot as a passer, especially in his decision making, which is super valuable for a team that struggles with spacing. He's able to get people in spots and able to use his eyes to get defenders out of the way and create like small slivers of space, which is high level stuff. Like so overall for me, I do think eventually he's going to be a league average catch and shoot shooter, which should be enough for him because he can strength create with the best of them once he gets in the lane. I would give it a B if I were to grade it. I still feel like there's a pathway to being an all-star, being an all NBA player. It's just going to take time.
Definitely. You bring up probably the most important aspect is that, and this is something I talked about quite a bit prior to the season. Everybody, he won Rookie of the Year. He scored the ball way better than people thought, but points per game didn't really tell, how he was scoring the ball. Like
Yeah,
it was bully drives, it was offensive rebounds, it was transition finishes, and on occasion a cut, something like that. And there was really creative finishes from him, but the way he succeeded was like one of one. It wasn't something, and it also wasn't something that the Raptors can build out an offense from. It's
yeah,
kind of like the the returns they were getting from the Pascal led offense immediately stopped becoming good once guys stopped shooting the ball well. Because
yeah,
Pascal's first however many games with the team, the catch and shoot stuff was working pretty good. Teams were doubling, they were abusing mismatches, working the ball around from there. But if the team isn't going to shoot well, just putting Pascal on a mismatch and letting teams overload isn't going to create enough movement, isn't going to create enough opportunities. And Scottie Barnes is basically like that's how he dominates as well. It isn't in typical like pick and roll. That's what we think of stars, right? Or
mhm,
if it comes to a big man, it's being like having guys cut off of you and having guys, succeed. You brought up Sabonis, for example. And Scottie didn't do either of those things. He was like succeeding wonderfully well at all the in between stuff. And the in between stuff is the in between stuff for a reason. It doesn't mean it's not underrated, it is, but it also means that you can't really scale it up as high as you want. What Scottie needs to be able to do is have some semblance of a pull up jumper. He has to be really great with his handle so that he can take on all these different coverages that we see stars are treated with in the playoffs. Like you're going to see 4 or 5 different defensive coverages, and like even Caitlin Cooper she wrote about this season, like the switch to Peel and like how effective that is at kind of stopping stars from getting downhill and then also keeping bigs away from getting the dump off pass. It's like there's a lot of different stuff. And if you have a really tight dribble and you can hit pull up jumpers, then you can kind of navigate that. Scottie isn't close to either of those things. The other thing they brought up though, something that I wrote about very in depth, was his passing. And I think his commentary around scoring and passing is the exact same. When you ask Scottie, he makes everything sound like it's the easiest thing in the world. and he just says, "I'm just playing basketball. This is just what I do." And when it's scoring, I think he's being dishonest because we see him struggle.
Yeah.
When it's passing, I think he is being honest. He's just like, "I'm just making the plays that are out there." And you want to be like an idiot reporter like me and be like, "But hey, do you guys don't make plays like you?" Like maybe it seems easy to you. Maybe you can walk me through it, but like how the hell are you processing the floor this fast? How are you putting the ball like that precisely into a guy's shooting pocket or leading them into a lane to the rim? And that kind of stuff, it just seems like it's innate for him. And that's the special thing is that Scottie is innately
Yeah.
one of the most talented passers in the NBA. It should be, I think it behooves the Raptors that whatever it looks like the next few years, figuring out how to make Scottie's passing the hub of the Raptors offense, that's what you try to do. And I think that's built around how he works on his own skill progression. It also works on the guys you put around him. And you have to find like that harmonious mix. It might be difficult if he doesn't progress as a scorer, then it's probably not tenable. But you have to make that bet that he will, you know.
Yeah. I agree. Like his passing is probably the one thing where you say like this is the traditional star quality where you can say if we put like subsequent shooting around him and hope that he will create enough he'll develop enough where he's a true threat going downhill using his size, using his strength, being able to finish over length. Whereas the shooting issues might not matter enough or might not matter at all because he's so big that you have to overload, you have to crash on him, and he can find anyone on the court. So I think that's like one of the overlaying things with the team, and probably like Akina mentioned this on the last podcast that while like there's you can keep Pascal and Scottie on the same team as Pascal ages out because Scottie can take over some of those possessions that Pascal would currently.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us into I want to talk about our three favorite games from this season. And the first I'll list is it was a loss, but it was the first game where we really, really saw not only the Raptors using Scottie more as a screener and more as a hub in that in between role when teams were sagging, but the Pacers with Turner, because they really wanted to have Turner as that helper, they were the first team that just kind of like sent him way back into the paint. And we're like, the Ben Simmons defense you guys have seen elsewhere, we're going to try and do that on Scottie Barnes. And Scottie started out kind of slow. He was trying to understand how the game was being played against him. And I think it took him like 4 minutes of gameplay to figure out exactly how he wanted to undo the defense that was put out in front of him. And I think he did like a really fantastic job of taking that ultimately they did lose, but I didn't think that was on Scottie at all. He took a defense in front of him, open space, which is hard to navigate in the NBA if there's a guy at the rim and you don't want to. Well, hey, people listening to this now, you listening to this, Trey, everybody has played some level of pickup basketball for the most part. You know what it looks like when there's a team that doesn't shoot well and the other team sags. The
Yep.
absolute awkwardness of trying to orchestrate an offensive possession. You have to be really clever. It's why the group of like between I don't know 38 and like 52-year-olds in the lower levels of men's league
Yeah.
typically do pretty good. You know why? Because they're not afraid to shoot mid-range jumpers. They set screens for each other and they move in unison. And it's like because they know how they want to attack it together. Scottie started coordinating the Raptors offense from within, and it started with that game. And it gave us probably, outside of the 6-game series against the 76ers, the most interesting stretch of his career so far. And it started with that game. So that was my number one. What game do you have?
My number one would be the first Cavs game that we played because like that was like the epitome of like what the Raptors were trying to do.
It really was.
It looked beautiful. Whereas you're facing this team with these dynamic guards, you're blowing up all of their actions with your size, your length, creating turnovers. Everybody's running and you're scoring and you're taking out a all NBA play. He's probably gonna make first team actually. Uh, all
Donovan?
NBA guard and making him significantly struggle and get out of his game.
I was told that he and Gary are not so different.
I was told as well. But leaving that game, you sort of look like this is what they're going to do. We're going to carry over what they did in the second half of the season, and this is going to be like a 50-win team because we're playing a style that nobody wants to deal with or doesn't have like the requisite um, passing ability to dissuade us from being as aggressive, which might not have been true, but at the time it felt like the Raptors had something cooking.
It did work, and that was one of my three favorites. Was not only because from the Raptors' point of view, they achieved the defensive outcomes that they wanted. I had like Goose and T had talked about, like, they really harped on the fact that OG was a wrinkle for the Raptors against
Yeah,
the Cavs. That was true. OG, I think, had 20 points. He had like 5 assists. He was like attacking closeouts. He was making the lay down to the big, and he was able to bridge the gap defensively. He, Precious, Scottie, and Pascal, between navigating like Mobley and Allen on the defensive side of the floor, like trying to keep those guys off the boards, trying to keep those guys from finishing everything at the rim. It's a Herculean effort. For the opening night of the season, the Raptors achieved that. And then everything you said, especially about like blowing up the actions on ball, but also personally, that was my first home opener I ever got to work. It was super cool. It was awesome to be there doing that. I'd worked games before, but this was like, I was at preseason games, but I was like, I'm there for the season.
yeah,
This is a cool thing. And to have the Raptors perform that well on offense, it wasn't perfect. On defense, it was really good. I was like, this is the formula. And then that formula, it was rotten milk, dude. That's
it was
that's where
true.
it ended up.
Yeah,
Um, so my third favorite game, Pascal Siakam, the Garden. I just I got to watch that one with my brother. That was just a great week of like sports because I went home to Saskatoon to surprise my family for Christmas.
yeah,
We played basketball, all of us, the night before I left, which was
yeah,
fun as hell. And I went home and I surprised my grandma, and she was like so happy and everything. But then we sat down and we watched the FIFA World Cup final, which
Oof,
was an
incredible.
incredible game. And then a couple days later, maybe even like one or two, Pascal goes for 52 in the Garden. I watched that with my brother. I was just in awe. I was like, "Do we have it? The superstar is that him?" And I was
Yeah,
like, "I think we do." Like and he was just in such a zone. And then after that, like, you saw some of the effort on defense tail off. You saw less ability to blow by dudes. You saw like more reliance on the jump shot, as it looked like he was, that cumulative load had caught up to him. Nobody knew that was coming. He just gave the Garden 52. It was the first 50-point game in years there. Like
yeah,
Harden in 2018 or 19, something like that, was the last guy to do it. And Siakam, while it became over that stretch of like 2 or 3 weeks, suddenly everybody had 50 points. Like something happened in the NBA. That's when everybody went nuts.
yeah,
But at the point in time that Pascal did it, it was like, oh, he's the third or fourth guy to do it this year. We're like 3 months into the season. This is incredible. And then, as the same case with the Cavs game, everything started going downhill. And we had that meme of OG like throwing the water bottle at him repeatedly, just bam, bam, bam. It was good times, man. And I thought that was the game that would turn the Raptors season around because they'd been struggling. They lost those two to Orlando. You
yeah.
know, it's I thought they were turning it around then.
No, that
Yeah.
that was that was like in retrospect, but like that that whole like Pascal stretch at the beginning of the season, you and I believe we said it on the podcast. You looked at like this is the championship hub that everybody has been asking for. He's able to slip and get into the rim with the best of them, and his mid range jumper has gotten to a point where you can't just overload the defense and hope that he's not going to score. He's figured out like counters to everything the defense is going to actually offer you. And Gary, Fred, OG to a lesser degree wasn't shooting as well. Also, are good enough where they're going to punish people when they overload as well. So like it looked like things were going to turn around. Like the Raptors are have like their guy, which I still think they do to be honest. Like, he is a part of that nucleus whenever they turn this ship around. But I would say it's just like that game is like a microcosm of what we want to see moving forward, is having shooting around Pascal and allowing him to having shooting around Pascal, probably a more conservative defense, and allowing him to be meticulous and knife through offenses in the same way.
The thing is, though, you probably don't get both of those things together. The way that the team is currently constructed, you don't get the shooting and the conservative defense. For example, because Scottie is there. Scottie's the future.
Yeah.
Nobody's moving off of Scottie. Kevin Durant was in the ether, and that wouldn't move the Raptors off of Scottie. Guess what? Nobody.
He's never
Short of the Thunder being like, hey, actually, we think Scottie and Giddey is better than Shea and Giddey. You want to do that? The Raptors are like, yes, please, yes. But the Raptors, they're going to have Scottie. If they want to play the conservative defense, they're going to have Pirtle there. They're going to re-sign him.
Yeah.
If they want to have shooters, they're going to have Scottie, Pascal, and Jakob on the floor. I'm just like, how do they achieve this? Because Fred, I think, will have a better shooting year next year than he did this year. I think he really will. I think OG is a good shooter, but it's like there's just not a lot going on the floor. Like Pascal, to make this team work, and maybe it's not fair to him, he has to shoot the ball pretty well.
Yeah,
like on 3-point shots. Like we see so many of these possessions come out to him. He and Scottie more than anybody else, I think, where the ball rests in their hands above the break. And you're like, this is where if it was Gary, OG, or Fred, you feel really good about the possession ending there. And you're like, if it goes in, if it misses, it misses, but that's the shot.
Exactly.
It rests in Pascal's hands or Scottie's hands. Sometimes they shoot it at a poor percentage. Sometimes they try and create a little bit more. And it's like you always feel like they're leaving something on the bone by not taking that shot in the possession. And Pascal, he hasn't been prioritized in play style once during his Raptors career. And some people say that he doesn't have to be. He's not good enough to be. I'm not here to litigate that. He's been paid as much as they could possibly pay him. They've had him on the roster. He gets a lot of possessions. It's maybe not exactly fair because it's not like, really attuning to his skills, but he has to shoot the ball better. If he wants this team to be as good as possible, he has to be a guy who catch and shoot threes. They got to go north of like 37, between 37-40%. You got to hit above the break too. And like, that's hard.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Like, I think a more realistic path is like Julius Randle still never became a great shooter, but he takes enough of them where the defense has to consider guarding him. I think he shot around 34%, but he took 8 threes a game, which is
You want to know something funny? Fred and Julius Randle shot the same percentage on catch and shoot threes this year. Fred usually shoots around the Buddy Hield level. Last year, for example, he was 43%. Buddy Hield was 42% this year. This year, Randle and Fred shot the same percentage. That's tough, man.
Yeah, that's
difficult. It's difficult to navigate. I wrote that piece about Fred shooting kind of being the metaphorical or the allegorical equal to like the Raptors season. Is just like it was good for stretches, and then what the hell? Because everyone was like, "Hey, this is good. This is a known quantity, both with Fred's jumper and the Raptors." And then both of those things were like, "What if we weren't?" It's
tough. Okay, I think I have 2 more games left, so I'll do these quickly. Number 2 for me would be Raptors Caribbean night. 1, because I'm Caribbean, and 2, it was like a beacon of hope post deadline. You guys know my smile was gone after the deadline, but the Raptors showed in that game like what division, even heading into next season, to be honest, of like what this team could actually look like. Much better defense. Jakob actually providing someone who can be an effective roller and be a screener and open up Fred. He had probably his best game of the season this year with us. I think at 21 and 18. And he looked like somebody who is going to be able to allow us to play the scheme that everybody has been hoping for, a more conservative way to allow Pascal, Fred to have less miles traveled, stop being in the top 5 of this list. And from that point on, it looked like they're catching the Hawks. They're going to be 7, 8 seed, and they're going to give Boston and Milwaukee a very tough time, and they're going to be a tough out.
Didn't happen.
No.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
I've always said Caribbean. Yeah. Always. Caribbean.
Please.
What is the difference there?
It's like when like Caribbean is like when someone says schedule. Like, yes, you can say it like that, but like you're a loser if you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understood.
Yeah.
That's understood. I think I looked it up one time and it was like American versus like the UK.
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly sure, but I mostly, of course, you always want to know like it's not Pakistan, it's Pakistan. You know,
Yeah.
like you want to say it how the people from there say it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I was relieved to hear you call it Caribbean night because I was like, I say Caribbean. So
no. And then the last game would be against the Heat, Precious's 20 rebound game, which is
and
like
where Nick was like, if you do this every game, I'll find you 15
I'll
minutes.
give you some minutes. Yeah. I still believe this, but it looked like this is how Precious is going to be viable against really good teams that we cannot score on. He's going to be able to bludgeon people as a rebounder, create extra looks, help us win those possession battles by simply just being the most athletic player on the court and being able to, although he can't shoot, still being athletic enough to blow by closeouts, sagging off or not, and getting to the rim and still scoring. Like with Jakob, that probably there is like some tension in between Precious is like how tenable he is on the team currently. But as an overall player, I still think that he has the ability to be a playoff or like rotation guy, whether that's a 4 or a backup 5. He's going to be like a central cog into the Raptors, like heading into the future.
I still think there's all-star potential there.
Ooh.
I do. Just some guys put it together late.
Yeah.
But as far as tools, looking at the things that Precious can do, the spurts.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee, obviously, that all the spurts come together. For Scottie, for example, his fourth quarter, he set the record for most points scored in a fourth quarter over the course of a Raptors season. Like nobody scored more fourth quarter points in a season than Scottie for the Raptors. And a lot of people's response is like, where's the other 3 quarters? And of course, we've talked about this before. It's like finding pockets of the game to dominate. But I feel the same way about, Scottie's fourth quarter scoring as I do about Precious's huge runs of rebounding and defense and like a little bit of off the bounce creation. It's like, man, I wonder if he can put this together. He has like, instead of 1 or 2 runs a game, or in Precious's case, sometimes 0. I wonder if he can have like 3 or 4, during between 28 and 34 minutes. And then eventually, maybe 27, 28, some years down the line, is this just like a guy who does this?
Yeah.
And Precious flashes more things than most big men in the NBA. Of course, he gives you stretches that a lot of those same big men just wouldn't have, as far as like the lack of effectiveness and some of the decision-making faux pas. But I wouldn't like bet on the All-Star outcome, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. He still intrigues me to no end.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know. I don't think All-Star, but I think he could be a plus like starting 4 in the league.
Ooh, here's my question.
Right.
You don't think he'll be named an All-Star, but you think he could give you like equivalent impact to other All-Stars?
I believe that. I think he could be first team all defense and like contending for the defensive player of the year. Like there's a scenario where his catch and shooting become tenable, and who knows what changes they make in the summer. Say he's our starting 4 next to Jakob, and they're the best defense in the NBA. I don't think that's like crazy that isn't like out of the realm of what could happen.
Like down the line, right?
Down the line, yeah.
Yeah. I do wonder. This offseason, this isn't Trey and I aren't talking about this, listener viewer. really this episode because we have many episodes to come, and the Raptors have to. We got to see Masai talk, man. He hasn't said a thing. We got to hear some stuff about direction, expectations, all this kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, I was at the, people listen to the last episode. I was at the exit interviews. It was fluff, like a lot of fluff. And even though Masai is going to no doubt give some fluff, sometimes he gives like the hard truths. And so we'll talk more about that as the season comes on or the off season continues to go on. But also Trey and I, what used to happen in the past was that I would talk specifically to scouts, and it would be Samson plus scout. We're talking about a guy I'm learning. Having Trey here for a lot of those conversations, not every single one, is going to add like a whole other dynamic because Trey watches way more college basketball than I do. So that's a lot of the coverage that'll be coming up. And then when we can talk about, what the hell is going to happen in the offseason, obviously we relish that opportunity to, hypothesize and do like the fan thing. But before we get out of here, Trey, the Blue Jays, they're going to play in about an hour. They're 11-7. Do you have any favorite things happening with them currently, and something that worries you, perhaps?
I'll start with the bad. I like the pitching is still very shaky. It's very very shaky. Just um, as everyone knows, we currently have a bet going on with Manoa and Gelsman, and it doesn't look good for me. Manoa is like really really struggled with location, and there isn't much movement on his fastball currently. And
You know,
teams, yeah,
you know what it is? The slider. We talked about the stuff plus
yeah,
the metric. It went from being like an above average pitch to an average pitch to now like it's currently way below average. He's throwing it still fairly often, but he's not getting any whiffs.
yeah,
So if he throws that pitch, it's either a ball or guys are typically fouling it or hitting it hard. And that pitch, I remember like when he came up against the Yankees and he would like throw a slider against a left-handed batter and they would swing at a pitch that ended up hitting them. I was like, man, this is nasty. But it's lost some bite. You know
yeah.
what I
No,
mean?
it's been tough. Like I would say Gaussman and Bassett, even though he had that one game where he didn't understand what was going on, have like lived up to expectations. Although Kikuchi and Barrios have had decent starts of late, they're still so volatile. Where like if we're in a series tomorrow, you would be like, we only have really three pitchers that I'm confident in playing currently. But
So
that's the bad.
I have another pitching bet. Blake and I, we both use beard oil. I I think made a mistake. I believed the Blue Jays as they said that Barrios was going to figure everything out, and he was really good against Tampa Bay. He's about to pitch. We're going to get some feedback, tonight. But seeing Barrios as he has an 8 ERA right now, Blake and I made a bet. Whoever was closer, I said I expected 3.75 on the season. Blake
Mm.
said 4.25. I think I'm gonna have to buy him a little bottle of beard oil. But yeah, the starting pitching I think has been a concern. Although you can probably expect Manoa to find better footing. I
Agreed.
think that Barrios and Bassett and Kikuchi all having decent starts now, kind of in a row with each other, especially if Barrios pitches well against the Astros tonight. And then Gossman, I think you can expect like that Astros performance is just way out of left field. He gets back to it. The
Yeah.
thing that is a little bit concerning though is that Varsho and the 6 through 8. I like Varsho still. Like the defense is really great, but Varsho hitting cleanup and batting like 200 with runners in scoring position and like not being able to drive guys in when like Vladdy is getting on base 44% of the time, Bo is getting on base 40% of the time. Like whether if it's Springer, it's only 29% of the time. If Chapman is ahead of Varsho, it's 47%. He's seeing a lot of base runners ahead of him, like a lot, and hasn't been able to hit him home. And there hasn't been a lot of pop in the bat. That's something to watch out for. And then yeah, like the second base rotation. I hope it ends up being Espinal because I like him a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the back end of the lineup has been outside of Kiermaier pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And even like the game Chapman sat out, it totally decimated the lineup. It was a winnable game, and now you're with all these runners in scoring position. You have Whit Merrifield trying to bat everyone home. So like that's something to watch out for if we face some injury issues. But on the positive, I would say the Blue Jays probably, if not the best, they have a top 3 defensive outfield in the league. They've saved a million runs. They've gotten to a point where it's a strength of the team, whereas last year was a major weakness. There was a fly ball that wasn't a direct pop up. We weren't getting the outs majority of the time, whereas now they're saving runs, and I believe they're top 3 in save runs in their outfield, which is really good to see. And initially, when the trade happened with Varsho, I was like, oh, we gave up like one of the best prospects in baseball. He doesn't really hit that well. Regardless of the him being able to cash some runs, I would still say currently it's like a net positive trade, and he's helped the team dramatically. So overall, I think we're the best team in the AL East. I think they're going to win the division.
I hope so too. The cool thing about baseball is you just get like all the stats.
Yep.
And especially since it's, you have these isolated situations, it's obviously you can't do it just you and I looking at the game being like, "Oh, I think, it was a however the ball came off the bat at this angle at this miles per hour." It's like you can't do that, but if they have the cameras that can capture that kind of stuff, you can see from how it comes off the bat mostly where a ball is going to end up. You can juxtapose that where a player is standing in the outfield and like what percentage of catches are typically made. And the Blue Jays aren't going to make every catch that like 80% of these balls drop. But having Varsho, Kiermaier, and Springer in left, center, and right, they're catching a lot more of those like 70% of these balls aren't caught. And that's like huge because it used to be that like with Teo and Lourdes in particular, it was like they're catching all of the like 20% to like 40% balls, but they're not catching a lot between like 50 to 100.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jays have kind of inverted that. So if the ball goes up in the air, they got a pretty good shot at it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I agree. I don't know if you've been looking the prospect. Have you watched any of Ricky Tiedemann?
So I watched him in spring training. I watched the highlights of his 3-inning, 9 strikeout. Dude.
Yeah.
I also listen to Blue Jays podcasts. I listen to I'm just a fan of the Blue Jays. I'm a consumer of the product and all the talk around it. And Blair and Barker had Tiedemann on. He seems cool, man. But also like whether it's Blake or whether it's, Andrew Stoughton or whether it's, Blair and Barker or Show Ali and Ben Schulman, all the people who talk about the Blue Jays that I listen to in particular, a lot of them are like, maybe we see Tiedemann, maybe we don't. And I think just like, it's kind of like when I started watching in 2021, I didn't know Manoah was coming up really.
Yeah.
He just, I only ever heard about Pearson. And then Manoah was there and he was like, had, like a 3.3 ERA. He was awesome. And I was just happy as hell. Just like, hey, this guy's good. More of that. And I just want to have the same opinion like of Tiedemann. Like if it works, it works. Hell, that's my thing.
Fair enough. From what I've seen, and I'm not a baseball expert, it looks like he's going to be a plus starter. I'm wondering heading into like September if there's still the same like volatility with Kikuchi and Barrios, where he takes the 5 spot. Let's get 3-4 innings of him, and we'll use this as a bullpen day in the playoffs. Because Zach Pop, he's got the goods.
He's got the stuff.
Yeah.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
The special question I had for you. Kevin Gausman, let's say 96 mile per hour fastball. Do you think you could hit it? You know a fastball is coming.
Hit it for a base hit or hit it in play? These are 2 different questions.
Hit it in play. I don't think I could. I played baseball. Did you play baseball growing up?
Not competitively. No. I'm gonna say no. I feel like if I do try to, I'm gonna fracture my wrist. I'm gonna say don't be humble.
Okay. R.A. Dickey, 84 mile per hour fastball.
Double.
Can you?
No. Double.
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 Okay. This ruins this ruins the secret question. I have my fastball measured, the speed of it. Do you think you could hit? I wind up. You've actually seen a video of me pitching before. 73 miles per hour. Gas coming in at you, Trey. From me, I'm up on the mound. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to psych you out. I'm like Nestor Cortez, dropping the leg, all this kind of stuff. Do you think you could hit my fastball?
As a Palladium savant, I will say I'm knocking it out the park. Home run.
Unbelievable. How fast do you think you can throw?
See, I think I can. I think I throw 80 miles an hour, but I don't think I can throw a location at all.
You think you can hit 80?
I work on quite a bit. I feel like it,
Damn. Okay.
I don't think I could get the strike zone though.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Like, because you got to give it your all. You got to like really lean into it. 80. I would love to see you throw 80. If Trey, I don't know if you understand. I would like hee-haw laugh if I saw you step up to the mound and go like, pah, and throw an 80-mile-per-hour fastball. I would, oh my God. I would. We have to, this summer, we have to find like the you go pitch and it measures the velocity. Yeah. Maybe they'll have one. We're going to go to a few Blue Jays games. Maybe they will have one at the stadium one of those days, and we got to get in there. All right. And we got to measure it. I need video proof of this gas.
We will put it on the podcast.
Yes.
Some gas.
Only if you throw 80. If it's like 64, it's not making the cut. 80 is a lot.
80 is a lot?
I'd be impressed.
I think I can do it.
Anyway.
Yep.
Anyway. Listener, thanks for tuning in with us. We're hoping that with the baseball stuff, you just like us more than you like Raptors talk, and we hope that was entertaining and enjoyable for you. I know there's some people who listen to our podcast just because they're like, it's Sam and Trey. I'll listen to Samson and Trey, and this is for you mostly. I find sometimes for people I like, yeah, you talk about anything.
Agreed.
As long as you're not like an idiot. It's just... But anyway, thanks for tuning in. We enjoyed this immensely. If you're listening on the podcast channel, just thanks for logging in, listening to us. If you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, and RaptorsRepublic.com will have draft stuff, end of season stuff, and like Team Canada stuff coming over the course of the summer, and some interesting features as well, particularly from Lewis and I. I think we'll be able to write some cool stuff. Subscribe over there. Trey, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Overall, I'll do some like end of season stuff. Like first off, like for you, congratulations, like getting through your first season on the beat. Which is great. Super proud. And obviously, like doing this podcast has been great, and doing it with my friend has been awesome, and all the support with the fans have been great.
I hear Sportsnet is sniffing around. They're like, Trey, he might be the new lead anchor. That's what I've been hearing.
I'm gonna leave that to you. You think like you got it.
All right. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch up with you in a week, probably to talk prospects. We'll see what happens we'll see if Masai comes out of hiding, and we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, all right. See you guys.